Bright ideas from the Green Chair spotlight Central Wisconsin and the breakthroughs, innovations, and inspirations that make our state a very special place. This program is dedicated to Bob Williams, a lifelong Central Wisconsin resident. From his public relations office in Stevens Point, Bob's bright ideas moved across the geographic, ethnic, economic, cultural, and political landscapes. His genius helped to elect a governor, build businesses, grow medical research, improve patient care, nurture a university, guard the environment, and inspire many to achieve their fullest potential. Like the fast-moving rivers of central Wisconsin, Bob Williams was uninhibited in his presentation of ideas, large and small. This despite a lifelong battle with debilitating polio that, while limiting his physical abilities, never diminished his will to move Wisconsin ever forward. From a well-worn green leather chair in Bob's office, Wisconsin Innovation was created in partnership with some of the state's most respected leaders in politics, business, education, and healthcare. Prior to his passing, Bob gave his storied green chair to longtime friend, business leader, and philanthropist John Noel. Residing now in John's home office along the Wisconsin River just outside of Stevens Point, the Green Chair welcomes yet another generation of bright ideas, high ideals, and strong spirit. Hello, I'm John Lobbs. I'm here for another edition of WisconsinEye's Bright Ideas from the Green Chair, from the home of John and Patty Noel in Plover, Wisconsin, a show which highlights the brightest ideas and people of central Wisconsin. With me today is the President and CEO of the Wausau Area Chamber of Commerce, David Eckmann. Welcome to the Green Chair.
Thanks for having me, John.
David is here today to celebrate the revitalization of downtown Wausau. When I think of downtown, David, the Petula Clark tune from the 1960s comes to my mind. The lights are much brighter there. You can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares. Just go downtown. So downtown, Wausau. Let's lay a foundation. Why is downtown revitalization important to a medium-sized city like Wausau, or for that matter, Stevens Point, Marshfield, Wisconsin Rapids here in central Wisconsin?
Yeah, certainly. What's really vital, this economy we live in today, you know, what was back last century, we're in a new century. And especially as we look at our economies throughout the country and in small cities like Wausau, Stevens Point, Marshfield, the downtown area is so important. Why? Because our next generation talent want to be going into downtown communities that support a quality of life, a vibrancy, has arts, culture, entertainment, a bit of commercial activity, and affordable living, and a vibrancy. In the world we live in, Milwaukee and Madison easily offers those. But as we compete in our economies to support our businesses, our industry, our education systems, it's vital that all sizes communities like Wausau are developing their downtown to attract and retain young professionals and to bring forth another population, being the baby boomers retiring. They also want to be in vibrant downtowns as they slow down in life and enjoy what the downtown communities have to offer.
I've heard you talk in the past about economic development, use the phrase infrastructure enhancement precedes economic development. Is it fair to say that downtown revitalization is really part of the infrastructure?
I'd say that's probably more important today than ever in the global economy that we live in, and so many choices that people have, that absolutely a quality, vibrant downtown is important in an infrastructure perspective.
Some of the key components of downtown revitalization are things like diversifying the economy, downtown placements, place building, things like making downtown the center of cultural and entertainment for a community. Now, if I think of all those things, I know that every community has its assets to build on, and it's got its negatives that it has to stay away from or try to improve. Sure. I'm a Wausau native, and I can remember in the 50s and 60s that the community followed a traditional kind of approach to downtown. It was all about shopping. First, the old courthouse square vanished, replaced by what was a strip mall with an anchor store and 3 or 4 other stores. And then 10, 15 years later, a mall was built at the end of 3rd Street, which is the main street in Wausau. All the shopping was downtown.
Correct.
Suddenly, the 90s and into the 21st century, and the world changed around us.
When you talk about the times that when you were in Wausau and you saw that commercial activity, you could see the bustle, hustle, street traffic in some of the pictures that we have in the community and the people walking the streets and doing the commercial activity which you speak. But let's go back, 60s, 1960s, 70s, flight from the urban center to the outlying suburbs. And that's really then what happened in most communities throughout the United States, especially in Wausau, where you had that diaspora, if you will, the flight out towards the west side of Wausau, and where those commercial activities started to take shape near the highway, towards infrastructure. And at that same time then, blight starts to rise up in the downtown area. And then that blight, again, continues to push people out rather than bring them in and inviting. And now as we approach where we've been over the last 25 years in Wausau is really a very thoughtful process by government and corporate leadership to understand that the downtown vibrancy is very important to the future of the region. Wausau is the economic center of north central Wisconsin. And the corporate leadership understood that if there was not a commitment to the downtown to keep it revitalized for a business environment, that things would go south.
Who were the key people and organizations involved, say 25 and 30 years ago, as they started to grapple?
You know, names that are mentioned, George Reuter, part of the Reuter Ware law firm, he brought in folks like Lane Ware, young lawyers at that point in time, Bart Kellenhauser. And I would be remiss because I'm missing people, a lot of people that truly committed. Stan Staples, another one. That people like this really, the leaders, the corporate leaders, who were connected to different business and industry people, that were able to reach out and say, hey, we have a challenge here. Did they ever really articulate a plan on paper? No. What they did was to say, we need to get this done, here's why we need to get it done, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to do it. And it was through that corporate leadership, a partnership with government, that they were able to bring in other individuals that had wealth or resources to help, and Dick Dudley was one of those as well, in that anchor group that really helped to establish what needed to occur in Wausau to remove the blight and bring a new vision for the community.
There was one group, I think it's called Central Wausau Progress.
Yep.
Were they a planning group? Who and what were they?
Central Wausau Progress, what's known as CWP, was under the wing of the Wausau Region Chamber of Commerce. How did it come to be? It was back in the late 70s, early 1980s when the community and malls were the thing at that point in time, and Wausau did not have a mall. And so the city fathers and the corporate leadership worked together to vision a mall. And as they got stakeholders involved with this process, Central Wausau Progress was created as an organizational entity to bring those stakeholders together to create vision. to create a plan of attack. And as the dollars rolled in to support their efforts, because it took a lot of private money to build that mall and get the anchors established so that you would have tenants as you're up and running, and you can cash flow the building and the operation. That organization, CWP, was that body that helped to make that happen. And then as that mall was developed, Central Wausau Progress continued its motion down 3rd Street through the pedestrian mall and reshaping that as well.
Let's get to the fun part of this, the Chamber of Commerce part for you, Dave. Some of the things that they did to respond to the decline downtown.
So you work your way from what they did with the mall, and then you have the pedestrian mall. Now, you have a green space that you're working on 3rd Street, and it was the old courthouse, right? And then it was some shops, and then now it was just at that point in time, about a decade ago, about 11 years ago, that it was just green space. And the vision was for the 400 block, to be a community gathering spot. So turning this green space, what was just a green lawn, into something very special, as a landmark in the city of Wausau. Now, while that was not going on in the process, at the same time, the commitment of that same group of leaders that I've talked about in the past really brought forth an earnest effort to build the Arts Block, which is on one block just to the east of the green space. Now, that Arts Block took an old movie theater, revitalized it into a world-class facility where Wausau attracts Broadway shows throughout the year in different forms of entertainment, okay? And so that then was redeveloped, and then the Center for Visual Arts attached right there to it. So for thriving artists to bring in their work and display it to the community. Then, after that was done, the 400 block was finished. And so now all of a sudden you have a vibrant art scene, the 400 block. And then at that point in time, now this gets to your point about infrastructure driving development. So between those two assets and now 3rd Street, in its revitalization, the pedestrian mall goes away. So it becomes a drive-through thoroughfare. Now small shops, gift shops, you name it, small boutique businesses, thriving eateries, bars right there that are right next to the 400 block and right across from the art scene. Now, as you progress down 3rd Street a little bit more, you have a committed stakeholder throughout that whole block with Compass Properties that is committed to the development of the downtown. And now you see the umbrellas hanging.
Tell me about the umbrellas.
Yeah, the umbrellas are an awesome part of the community. Mark Craig from Compass Properties happened to go to Europe at one point in time, saw something similar to it, and came back and said, we got to do that here. And so if you ever get up to the Wausau area in the summertime, umbrellas with snow don't mix so well in the wintertime, right? So the umbrellas hang, the sun shines through, and it's just a refreshing venue. Now, what's happened with the development? Now we're moving down the 3rd Street corridor towards Bridge Street and the river.
And this gets to diversifying the old shopping economy.
Absolutely. There's still, people still like to do boutique shopping. Boutiques thrive in downtown communities. Malls don't anymore. Big box, no. It's boutiques. People love to have the boutique retail experience in the downtown area. And that's really where the community has positioned itself to bring in those specialized, and they're thriving in the downtown community. We have a 100-year-old bookstore, a 100-year-old bookstore in Wausau, Yankee Books, that is on 3rd. And for a bookstore to be in business today, 100 years, it's phenomenal. Why? Because they've specialized into boutique areas that other big boxes just cannot replicate. It's tremendous, the diversification that's taking place. And what has happened now with that square is transformational. It has been. I don't think anybody has the realized expectations of what it's become. It's used seasonally. Just last week we had Outrageous Weekend where we had art displays, and that ties down. That art show goes right down 3rd downtown, and then it ties to what was the old Wausau Club. Now, the old Wausau Club was a socialite club, where a lot of these gentlemen that we talked about, where they did business and planned for the community. It's now the Modern Museum of Art in Wausau. So it's been transformed into an arts cultural hub there. And what happens is what's taken shape just starting at the mall that many years ago, and now moving down 3rd Street, it just brings a diversification of people that want different things, but it's used seasonally. You have Outrageous Weekend, you have the Chalk Fest. If you've never seen Chalk Fest, I would encourage anybody to go. You'll see some tremendous artists who can do things with chalk on concrete.
This is just chalk drawing on concrete. I understand there's like 300 or 400 artists that come and
Yes.
display.
And if you can find pictures and show, the talent is unbelievable. From young to old. You'll have people there doing fantastic work around the square with chalk art. And then in the fall, we have fall festivals. We have Ginseng Festival coming up this weekend, celebrating our rich tradition, world-class ginseng. And we'll have a population from Korea and China coming over and seeing our community and celebrating ginseng.
We had former Governor Tommy Thompson in the green chair for our inaugural show, and we talked about ginseng. He couldn't have been higher on it. 95% of all of the ginseng in the world grown outside of China is grown in Marathon County.
That's right.
Most of it just outside of Wausau, and you've got a festival. So what we're talking about here, we talked about diversifying the economy downtown. Now we're talking about turning it into a cultural entertainment center. So now you've already covered, let's do the Chamber of Commerce thing. You've already covered the Arts Festival weekend, the Ginseng Festival.
If you take that downtown, now think bigger out of that, maybe that 4-block center, okay? Downtowns have to be more than what they were in the past. And some people like choices and diversity in things that they want to do. And so you have that downtown experience, and you've got that, the green space where we have concerts on the square every Wednesday during the summer, thousands of people, okay? But as strategically as the city and corporate government, corporate body stakeholders take shape in the community, the 3rd Street corridor becomes very important for the future growth, and it's tied to the riverfront development. Dick Dudley made a massive investment in the city of Wausau, placing Dudley Tower right there on Scott and 1st Street. And over the years now, in the decade that's passed since that building's been open, you're looking at tremendous development from Scott Street all the way to Bridge Street. Now, the Marathon County Development Corporation, through different entities, have bought and purchased the sites, held them, redeveloped them strategically. So they make their way from the Dudley Tower north to Bridge Street. Now, what you're seeing today is a riverfront development that has a walkway all the way from the Wausau Kayak Course on the South Street of Stewart Avenue, which is world class, brings thousands of people. But you go from the Dudley north to Bridge Street, you have a walkway, you've got condominiums being built, you have commercial properties being built, you have Wausau on the Water, which is a family entertainment venue, young and old, fantastic fun and games for kids and families. And as you move forward north towards Bridge Street, you have the redevelopment of a family park. It's got fire pits on the water. It's got piers on the water. The work has to be done yet to get the river navigable. And when you move beyond Bridge Street, the plans are there. We're moving companies out of that area. So the cheese company, the chemical company, they're all being moved and repositioned out to the Wausau West Industrial Park. Why? Because this river amenity in the city, that what started downtown, has extended a mile and a half now to the north. That's what has to happen in communities like Wausau throughout Wisconsin.
What you're talking about on the river is the Wisconsin River, which runs right through the heart of downtown Wausau. And you talked about Scott Street as the main east-west street, and you talked about north of Scott Street behind the Dudley Tower. Tell me about south of there, and tell me about the kayaks.
So, as I understand the story, Bart Kelnhauser's walking over a bridge and looking down, and the river's not very active in that channel. A lot of blight a lot of pollution, tires, steel, metal, and had the idea that the Wausau whitewater kayak course could come in a vision that he shared. And it was through over decades of work that the community, be it government and the stakeholders, the benevolence in the community, put millions of dollars in to clean it up and create a world-class kayak course where we have international competitions and national competitions, bringing in people all over from the world in the country to compete in kayak racing.
Let's talk a little bit more then about the future. You already have the kayaks, but now you were talking about the river, the river walk. What else? The river walk is a continuing process. It's an outgrowth of what happened in the 300 and 400 block.
Yes.
What else is in the future for downtown revitalization in Wausau?
So, again, you got to think a little bit bigger. The old depot that was emblematic of Wausau Insurance, that sat empty for years, and related to where the Hiawatha line would come in, the old trains. And what is going on is we have a couple of young professionals who are committed to the community, and they're creating a distillery there. So they're bringing something that's part of our rich culture back to life, but in the 21st century purpose. That's one side. But what is transpiring now from north, I should say from south to north on 3rd, there's new townhomes being built on 3rd. That's going to allow people to live right there where this new area is expanding towards. The YMCA Aspires project is transformational. That's just a recent proposal, a $40 million investment by business and industry, by foundations, with no cost to the city whatsoever, to designate the Y as a health and wellness campus along with Aspires, building a clinic on one side of the street, a revamped YMCA that's going to expand childcare, which is in strong demand in Wausau, and as well to accommodate our baby boomers, of which we are growing many, and to keep them in our community, to build a senior activity center so that people have a place to plug in socially, exercise, take care of their health, all in that downtown campus. It's transformational.
And Central Wausau Progress is also working on repositioning the mall.
Absolutely. So if you want to bookend it at this point in time, you have the campus on one side of 3rd, but if you go back up, right now the community is working hard. You get one chance to adapt a mall property like that. It's 400,000 square feet. And you have one chance to really say, okay, what's this going to become in an adaptive use? The building is great. It's got parking, over about 1,300 parking spots between the anchors, east and west. And with that, there are opportunities. And right now, one of the areas of exploration for the community, and maybe it's not downtown, but maybe it is a international training facility for Olympics, in consideration that it's an activity center, a civic center, where it does high performance training, offers hockey. We need more ice in Wausau. Hockey is really popular and we're short ice. But to have a downtown civic center that's really tied to the health and wellness in sports, which is a strong suit for Wausau.
You're not going to compete with the Pettit Center in Milwaukee.
Well, if you come to Wausau, you see the outdoor amenities that we have right down, because you can kayak. We've got a world-class curling facility in Wausau that could and likely will at some point hire or host an Olympic qualifying event. So, in many respects, no, not a speed skating rink like the Pettit rink. But to people who really like a strong outdoor and a wellness activity, that's potential for Wausau, absolutely.
One component we haven't talked about that is always mentioned by all the urban planners when they talk about downtown revitalization is downtown housing. That hasn't been part of any of the planning, I don't think, or the early planning. Where is housing in downtown Wausau, and why is that important?
Yeah, it's very important, and I would say to you, yeah, we are behind on that. In fact, talking to young professionals, I engage with young professionals quite often with the organization. We don't have a housing stock, not for purchase necessarily, but for multifamily quality housing for young professionals downtown. In fact, I would say to you, just this past spring, I got a call from a person driving through town and does this work as a consultant. And he said, I did some work. I was in your community enjoying your breweries. And I wanted to call you and say, you got a beautiful community, but you're missing it on housing. He said, I talked to people in your community. I went and did the data. You need to build quality, affordable, multifamily housing for young professionals. They're not ready to own, but they want to live in that downtown vibrant center. And if we don't have the housing stock to support that demand, they are going to go out to the suburbs. And then it's all for naught. So that's why, when we're going through our economic development planning as a community, housing is going to, and it already has, come up as an important topic for our future.
So it is all step by step, and one builds on the other. But overall, Wausau's made a lot of progress on downtown revitalization. What kind of effect has that had on the community?
Well, you look at the community, a lot of pride. A lot of pride that we're navigating in a direction that's bringing the change needed to take us into the next century, or this century, I should say, to keep people and to attract people. That's why there's so much attention given to it. When our corporate leaders are out and about throughout the world and they operate in different communities, they come back with ideas. They say, this works really well there. We should look at this, that. And that's how a lot of these things have happened. It's like Mark Craig going to Europe and bringing back the umbrellas. You don't do this alone. You really have to, in the development of a downtown, a vibrant downtown, you have to bring in a various viewpoint from stakeholders that bring you different perspectives and ideas, because it takes time. You don't want to be impatient. You don't want to make bad decisions. You want to make good decisions based on what data would say you should do, or what the qualitative, or what people are saying what you should do.
In terms of downtown revitalization, feeding economic development, one of the things that I know about the central Wisconsin area, and I've heard you talk about it, is the whole area, not just Marathon County or Wausau, but the whole area suffers from lack of population growth. Right. Oh, it's positive, but not by a lot. Is this downtown revitalization leading to more people coming here, staying here, returning here?
I would say we've not turned the corner yet. We do have population growth. Our population growth is in the age cohort 55 through 80. We are not growing in that younger demographic. So we do a good job of keeping our retirees in the community, and that's an important part of the downtown, because like I said, as we started this conversation, a vital downtown is important for that older cohort. They want to be in that vibrancy center. But what has to occur, and what isn't at this point, and housing is part of it, is to make sure that we, throughout central Wisconsin, all of us have to be building strong communities, downtowns included, and then present them to stakeholders where we want to bring. We want to support our corporate efforts to bring people, but we also need to go out and we need to toot our horn.
Well, so what are some of the lessons? Let's end here. What are some of the lessons other communities in central Wisconsin and elsewhere in Wisconsin, what are some of the lessons they can learn from this 25 to 30 year process that Wausau's been undergoing?
One, you have to have community leaders that are committed, emotionally committed to the excellence of growth in their communities by and far. If you don't have that, if you don't have that engagement, and you don't have what communities require, because cities can't do this all by themselves. They don't have the resources. It requires committed people. It requires capital investment from benevolent stakeholders that help to get this done. And then And then it's to leverage that power of leadership to make changes at the state level, local level, county level, federal level, whatever barriers are in the way for growth and vibrancy. Business and government do that together.
Well, Wausau and its downtown revitalization and its continuing efforts are making that green chair proud. I guess to end where we started with Petula Clark. So you go downtown, the lights are much brighter there. You can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares. Just go downtown. David, thank you very much for joining us in the green chair and sharing your thoughts. I'm John Lobbs for WisconsinEye. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Bright Ideas from the Green Chair. And please look forward, as we do, to the next edition of Bright Ideas from the Green Chair.